Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome, and thank you all for joining. My name is Jessica Paragoy, and I am the Marketing Coordinator at Estimating Edge. Today, James Lee, our business analyst, will be covering the Vector webinar for interior subcontractors, followed by Bob Ostrander, our Vector sales manager, who will be answering any questions you may have at the end. Before we get started, I'd like to cover a couple of housekeeping items. All lines have been muted, but we will answer any questions after the webinar. To ask questions, enter them in the questions window. We will answer them at the end. I will send you an email that has a recorded link. The recording will also be available to watch on demand on our website. When you leave the webinar today, a pop-up window will open with a 3-question survey. One of the questions is, do you think this product would benefit your company and why? We'd love to hear your feedback. Again, thank you for joining. James, let's get started.
Thanks so much, Jessica. And thanks everyone just in advance for attending. As mentioned, my name is James Lee. I work in the product department here at Estimating Edge. Really excited for today's presentation. We're going to be showing you a new product that we're offering to you all by the name of Vector. So let's get right into it. What is Vector? It's a 2D web-based quantity takeoff and estimating solution. For a 3,000 feet overview, it works by uploading your plans online, whether that's a PDF set or most other image files, and then proceeding to accomplish your digital takeoff and the estimate all in one application from there. So just some quick value statements. Again, off the top, it's takeoff and estimating software all in one. So that eliminates the need to transfer data from one application to another, which sometimes can result in data loss or inaccuracies. And then as mentioned in the description, again, this is a web-based application, and that's going to give us multiple different benefits. Number one, it's going to be lightning fast and easy to use. We all use internet applications on a day-to-day basis, so it's just a really comfortable and intuitive platform to navigate through. Now, another benefit of being a web-based software is in terms of pushing new changes and new features, the software updates automatically. All we have to do is handle our end, and there's no obligation on the end user or customer to download a new version of the software to their computer. We just ask the customer to refresh their web page and all changes are there. And Vector is also going to be a cloud-based application. So in terms of your job data, your documents, they're all going to be managed through the cloud. It'll also open up collaboration for your team members to work together on bids or each individually on their own bids. And this web platform is going to provide a really smooth and quick way to accomplish your takeoff, but you'll also see that on the estimating side of things, we're going to be taking a look at the smart and flexible assemblies that Vector has to offer. And inside of those assemblies will be all the customized material and labor items that your company needs to generate based on your takeoff quantities. So we'll dive a little deep into those, and then our end goal will be to enter in some pricing information, then some markups, and you'll be able to send out all of that estimate data with our multitude of reporting options and start writing your proposals, okay? So again, this is going to be a collaborative application because of its cloud basis. And for those material and labor items and assemblies, those are going to come from a database that's pre-existing and customizable that we would help you initially create when you first purchase the product. And by we, I mean our wonderful training staff. And from there, you'll still have access to our knowledge base on the Vector website, as well as access to our support staff via phone or email. And one thing we really want you to understand about Vector is this is a product that is extremely scalable with your company's growth. So as your company grows and gains access to more resources and needs more comprehensive solutions, Vector has additional features and packages that can help grow with your company and give you some additional competitive edge. One example of that is today we're going to see Vector functioning with the upload of 2D PDF plans on the web, but Vector also allows you to upload 3D models such as Revit files. And what we can do is extract the quantities and takeoff shapes from that model as inputted by the architect, so that it eliminates the need for you to do your takeoff manually. Then you can take all that data and push it to the edge, where you can utilize all of that product's estimating features, add-ons, integrations, and so forth. Okay? And you'll see with Vector as we proceed, it's a great tool to either put out a fast and simple estimate or a finely detailed estimate as well. So we'll look at a little bit of both. And the last thing before we get into the actual workflow of creating and finishing a bid is, even though we're offering some new products to you today, we just want to remind you, we're still the same Estimating Edge. We're over a 30-year-old company. A lot of our training and support and even some of the sales staff has been around here for more than 20 years. We still are listening to our customers and incorporating your feedback into our products. So we just want to make sure that we're letting you know what we're working on. We're taking the new technology that's available to us and making sure to make some of that available to you and help your businesses with solutions that you need. Okay, so what we're going to be doing today is, as the webinar is aptly titled, we're going to be focusing in the interior trade, and we're going to be focusing on some takeoff and estimate data for residential wood framing, some commercial interiors, and we'll even see a little bit of some painting. All right, so if you are a roofing company and you happen to be watching this, please note we will have a different webinar coming up for you that focuses specifically on the roofing trade. So if you're attending today, email us and let us know, and we'll make sure to keep you in the loop about dates, times, and invitations, etc. Same goes if you are an Edge customer. There are past and upcoming webinars that may point you in a better direction in terms of what Vector has to offer. So just reach out to us and we'll make sure to point you in that right direction. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is bring up my Google Chrome web browser. Again, this is a web-based application. Google Chrome is the recommended web browser for Vector, but you can still use Microsoft Edge, Mozilla Firefox as well. And Vector is going to exist inside of our admin portal, which any of our customers can gain access to. And here's our Vector dropdown, and we're going to start on the Bid Preparation Manager screen. Now, that's going to list out any bids that our company is currently working on and has active. So here's one of those in the list here as an example. If I wanted to add a new bid to the list, I just hit my Start New Bid Prep button, and you'll see all of these required fields: bid name, optional bid number, who is the estimator, a description of the job, address for the job site, various different dates about when the plan or bid is due, a note section, and then we also have a toggle to choose your unit system. In terms of scale, takeoff measurements, and item quantities, Vector can work with both imperial and metric. So you just want to make sure to set that up here initially. Again, just another way to kind of talk about the flexibility of the product off the top. Okay, and then you would hit Create New Bid here, but I've already got a bid created for us today, so we're just going to left click on it and jump right into it. And now we're inside of this specific project. Okay, and you'll see what we're going to do throughout the workflow today is use these buttons on the left-hand toolbar to navigate. But I'll quickly cover this overview screen. It is mostly informational, so I won't spend too much time here. But we have a way to edit any of the bid information we saw previously. We have a collaborative notes section for you and the team to communicate. We have an events grid that'll keep you up to date about significant actions throughout the application, like uploading your PDF sets. And then if you choose to do so, you can enter in some job contacts like an owner, architect, GC, or builder for this project, and their information will display here as entered. All right, so what I'm going to do is keep us moving. We're going to jump to the next step, and I'm going to go to my file manager by left clicking on the files button. And here we are. So this is where you would come to upload your plans, right? Your blueprints, your floor plans, ceiling plans, or even sections or details that you want to reference. And most of the time, I think you'll be able to accomplish that by hitting upload file and grabbing an entire PDF set from your PC. Okay, and if it's a PDF set with multiple hundreds of PDFs, then there may be some processing time involved. We'll keep you up to date via email and let you know when it's done processing. Same goes for any other type of image file. Once those are all processed, you'll see their thumbnail preview as you see for all these different images on the screen here. And from here, we've got lots of functionality. We can download a file if it was uploaded by a colleague and we don't have it on our PC. I can edit the description. I can delete files I don't need. You can even take security precautions and control who can or cannot make changes to this file. Okay, and that comes into play because probably the most important feature here is being able to annotate these images. Now, we are not going to spend time in today's presentation annotating these images, but if you reach out for an extended demo and that's something that interests you, please let us know. We'll make sure to cover it. I did create some preset annotations though that we'll see later when we do our takeoff, so we'll definitely circle back to that. But for now, let's just say that everything we needed was uploaded. It was adjusted as needed, and so now we can continue. And so what I'm going to do from here is take us to our next screen, which is going to be located inside of this build button here. All right, and so here we are, and you can see how quick we can just navigate from screen to screen because of this web platform here. All right, and so now we're working our way towards being ready for takeoff. But first, we kind of need to build the backbone or structure of this job. Okay, and the way we start is by looking at these 3 line items on the left-hand side here labeled scenario. You may know what a scenario is, you may not. If you don't, a scenario is the highest level of organization within a bid. Easiest way to understand that is thinking of it as a bid within a bid. As an example, I have 3 different trades that I could be performing on this job broken apart into scenarios. Those will each have their own pricing, so I could submit proposals for them separately. That's one way you can use scenarios. You can also have all of the same trade data in all 3, but maybe different materials in use, right? So it could be a good, better, best option. But inside of those scenarios will be your next level, which I have set up for us. Those are going to be your sections. Now, those can be used however you like to break apart the job by sections of a building or just by trade. You see some examples here. And then what you would do from there is start adding pages to your section. And these are going to come from the files that you've uploaded, right? So your floor plans, your ceiling plans, whatever you would need to do takeoff on inside of that section, you would bring those plans in here. And you can certainly search up and easily identify the plans you need. And then you would just hit this add button, but I've already taken care of that for us for the sake of time today. And at this point, we're very close to takeoff. But what we need to do now is jump back, and we previewed earlier on in the PowerPoint slides those smart and flexible assemblies. Okay, so that's what we need to focus on next, is bringing some assemblies into this job. Now, assemblies is a pretty common industry term. If you don't know, though, an assembly just represents anything you need to build and measure quantity for in your estimate, right? An interior wall, a ceiling, a door, etc. And we mentioned that those come from a pre-existing and customizable database that we help you build and that you maintain as you use the product. So let's take a look at that. I'm going to focus on the assemblies tab on the right-hand side. I'm going to start with my wood framing scenario at the very top. And I just hit this add button. And we'll get this pop-up modal, and we'll see a section titled Available Assemblies. That is going to be our database, right? So if I scroll down, I see tons of different assemblies. I got interior partitions, metal panel rain screens, a 2x4 acoustical, some generic area length in each. What we do recommend, and what we'll definitely do with you, is build some subcategories of your database. So for example, if I want to easily find my wood framing conditions, there I go. You see my wood framing category. I can bring in that whole group and just hit this add button. And that's exactly what I did. I brought in a wood stud framed interior wall and a wood stud framed interior ceiling that we'll be doing some takeoff for. Okay. Now for my commercial interiors, I would do the same thing, right? I'd search up my drywall category. Here's a bunch of different partitions that I've built out over time. I can bring in what I need, then go find my ceilings category, bring in my 2x4, and look at all these door assemblies I've built over time as well. Okay, so just an example of what you would see, and super easy to search and find what you need. You can also filter if you're looking specifically for an area length or count. You can filter by the type as well. And then I would hit add. And again, that's what I've done here. I've got a 2x4 acoustical ceiling, a 30x80 door, and a B01 partition with a 12-foot ceiling height. I also brought in some paint surfaces. We've got an assembly for painting a wall, a ceiling, and a floor that we'll look at our items for later. Okay, so really easy to access that database. What I want to do now, though, is help you understand these assemblies a bit more. They are going to store our takeoff quantities. They are going to be what generates your material and labor items, and they are the best way to demonstrate the flexibility, but at the same time, the ability to get complex that this application has to offer. So what we're going to do is focus on this commercial interior scenario, and let's start by opening up this type B01 partition. Okay, so what we're looking at now is the assembly properties, and it's really very simple how these assemblies are built. We give it a name. Here's that searchable category. Here is the designation for our assembly type, and there's 3 options for that. They are area, length, and count. Now this partition is a length because we measure it by linear feet. However, I have access to other types of length units and measurements as well. So regardless of trade, we should have the unit of measure to take off quantities for whatever you need. Okay, we're going to keep it linear foot in this case. Then we have a height field. So this comes into play if you need to calculate an square footage material from this length assembly. If I need to calculate my drywall board, I need to know the length of what I take off. the ceiling height, which will get multiplied by that and give me my square foot that I need for my drywall board. Okay, so very simple. And then I also have width. If you need to calculate volume, it's optional to fill this out. Then the width dimension will come into play and you'll be able to calculate volume items from this assembly as well. Okay, and then after that, we just have some drawing properties. So keep these colors in mind, this orange and solid line style. When we manually draw our takeoff shapes later, we'll see those colors, okay? And so that's what our length partition assembly looks like. And it's not that different for our ceiling or our door. We'll just quickly look at those. Here's our aptly named acoustical ceiling, the ceilings category. Here we see area because we measure this by the square foot. And here's the other area units of measurement that you have access to. And then area has length and width natively built into that calculation. So if we wanted to calculate volume, here's that height field. And then we've just got our drawing properties for an area shape, which has a fill style since it's an area, okay? And then lastly, here is our door, which is going to be a count assembly, and the unit of measure there is each. You're just counting how many each of this door or window or corner bead needs to be installed. And then because a count is just a flat integer, you can use length and width to get area and then bring in height if you want volume as well, okay? So building the assemblies themselves is very, very simple. Now, where the potential complexity that if you would like to build it that way comes into play is with the assemblies line items section. So as we populate these assemblies with quantity, now we have the material and labor items needed to build this partition also generating with quantity, right? So for all you interior subcontractors out there, this should all be right up your alley. This should be your language, right? We've got track, studs at 24 inches on center, shot and pin head screws, labor for finishing, for hanging, everything that we would need, right? So I want to help you understand how these items are built as well, because it'll really show you how intuitive they are to your industry knowledge and how we kind of rely on you a little bit to build out what you need, right, without making any assumptions. So let's start by looking at our material for our 25 gauge track right here. Here is our item properties, and it looks like a lot of fields, but it's really very simple, right? First, we just wanted to note that this item's cost will attribute to the material tax class. We've got a searchable category. And basically what we're saying here is exactly what this summary portion reads, that we want 2 lineal feet of 25 gauge 3 5/8 inch by 10 foot track per every 1 measured linear foot. So that just means that for every lineal foot of takeoff I draw for this partition, I want 2 lineal feet of track. So that's my top and bottom track. Very easy. If I wanted to do top and bottom separate, I make this 1 and then I make another item and I label them top and bottom, okay? Now it can get a little more complex. Let's say that you don't order your metal for the track by lineal foot, you order it by individual piece. No problem, you come and specify that your order unit is pieces. You can just type right in that field. Then you can say there's 10 lineal foot per piece. And whatever your quantity is for this track, we'll divide it by 10 and you'll know how many pieces you need to order. Okay, you can account for some waste here and even enter in your cost per piece of track. And when that gets generated on the estimate portion, it'll already be pre-filled with this database price. So you only need to change the price if you want to, if you get a new quote from your supplier. All right, same thing with your part number and all of that. All right, so that's a pretty simple example. I mentioned also that we could generate area items from this partition length assembly. So here's our FC board material, and it's just saying that I would like 1 square foot of my FC board for every square foot that gets generated from this assembly. So whatever length I take off will get multiplied by that ceiling height field, and we'll know what the square footage is. And so that'll tell us the square footage for this item as well. And again, I can specify I order this by the piece, and if it's a 4 by 8 piece, it's 32 square feet. And so I'll be able to divide my quantity by that and know what to order. All right. So obviously there's much more examples, but now that we at least have an understanding of the flexibility and intuitiveness of these items, we will help you build enough to really get you rolling when you first buy the product. But you can see it's really not hard to understand how they're built. So you'll really start adding to it yourself on a job by job basis from there. Okay, we're going to close these assemblies for now, and we are ready to start taking off quantities for them. Okay, so we're going to jump back to the left-hand side and start with our wood framing scenario. And I'm going to start with the second page in our list here. And so we've got the background image that was previewed in the file manager for this uploaded plan. And really quickly, I want to touch, we do have some annotations that I created earlier showing up on our takeoff screen. Whatever you annotate for an image in the file manager shows up on our takeoff screen, so you can use it for reference. We've got an arrow with a text box letting us know maybe this room number is different. But what's even cooler is I have a text box with another spec drawing linked to it. So if I hold Control and click on that detail text box, it actually opens up another image and its image editor in a separate window. So I can reference this as I'm doing my takeoff. Okay, you can also link a web page to this text box as well, like a link to a supplier's spec website or something like that. All right, and then we would just need to set the scale. That's pretty standard. You hit this set scale button. We've got a list of known scales here. This probably would cover you for most of the scales you see on a daily basis. If not, you can type a custom ratio right here using these fields. I would say the most common option though, if you don't trust what's on the architect's plan, and we all know that happens, I hit this measure line button and I find a known dimension like this one here, and I just left click on each end of that to draw a line segment, and I see that it's 34 feet. So I type that here, 34 linear feet. I hit confirm, and you can see that the scale is right about a 1/4 inch scale. So in this case, the architect did a fine job with that. And now we're ready to go. Okay, we've got our scale set. I've got my wood stud framed ceiling and wood stud framed interior wall. We're gonna start doing some takeoff for those, okay? So let's start with our ceiling. And because our ceiling is an area assembly, the toolbar knows that. And it gives my area tools a highlight for me. Those are gonna be our rectangle tool, polygon, some deduct options, and then we can draw circles and arcs as well. So whatever the shape is, we got you covered. We're gonna start with a polygon and we're gonna draw the area around this physical therapy room here. And we're gonna use a cool tool called ortho. I can specify an angle and that will only allow me to draw at that angle. So you see here, I have it at a 45-degree angle. It's just going to ensure that my lines are straight. So then I just start dragging my mouse and left clicking, and you can see how speedy and efficient this is. No need to wait for rendering. I hit enter on my keyboard and boom, it's done. You'll really feel the smoothness that this web platform offers to your takeoff, right? And now let's say I want to switch to a different assembly, boom, no problem. You know, I love this web platform for takeoff, I really do. Now let's say I want to go ahead and trace the perimeter here of this area shape to account for the linear feet of wall surrounding this room. Okay, because this is an interior wall assembly that I've set up as a length, that highlights my length tools. I've got a line segment, a negative quantity deduct line, a poly line, and then an arc. We're just gonna do our poly line today. We'll keep ortho on, and we have another tool called snap. Now what that's gonna do is watch how it snaps me to my previously drawn point right here. It locks me right into place as I'm drawing and just really prevents me from making any errors. I can just trace around my area shape and look at how easy it is to just go ahead and complete that. All right, so now we've just done some length, we've done some area. Let's even kick it up a notch. We'll come back to our area and let's do a bit of a deduct to take care of this. This looks like it would be a coffered ceiling typically, but we're just gonna take it off as if it were almost a skylight. I just draw my shape as normal and take a look at the quantity that you see changing on the left-hand side. We're actually removing quantity from this assembly as a deduct should. Okay, and then we bleed through to our background image so you can see what's underneath. So we've got the tools to keep you covered for a deduct as well, no problem. Now we'll switch to a different blueprint. You can see how quick and easy that is. And we'll take off this radius partition. Oh no, what do we do? Right, no problem. We grab our continuous line tool. I'm gonna leave ortho and snap off for this one. I'm just gonna start drawing as we've been doing here. And here's that orange color, by the way, that I told you to keep in mind. And now to handle this arc, what I want to do is place one point at one end of the radius, another in the middle of the curvature, and then a final point at the other end of the radius. And then I just simply on my keyboard hit Control K, and that's going to translate that shape to an arc for me. All right, and then I just double click to end my shape. And so just a simple keyboard shortcut will take care of that for you. All right, so no need to worry. And so we've seen a little bit of area and length. We'll get to how you can count up eaches later. But now I want to kick it up even more and say, what can we do with existing shapes? How can we manipulate them to speed up our takeoff even more, right? Let's jump into the commercial side of things and let's look at a somewhat more comprehensive floor and ceiling plan that you typically see for a larger job. Here's what I mean. Here's a ceiling plan right here, and we're gonna do some takeoff for our 2x4 acoustical ceiling. And let's say that we wanted to populate these rooms along the right-hand side here. Now, there are some small differences between each room with this right angle section here, but we're just gonna keep it simple. And let's say that we wanted to just take these all off as a rectangular area. Our rectangle tool is really awesome. You just left click, hold and drag and boom, it's done. And so I could do that for every room, but we have an even quicker way. I select my existing shape and I hit our duplicate tool. And then I can just run down my list, duplicating this shape for all of these rooms. So this would also be great if you do any wall panel takeoff and you want to take off the same panel type down the side of a building. And there we go. I just hit escape to go ahead and finish, and just a much easier way than having to manually draw anything. We're just trying to think of you for when these situations arise. Another example, if we focus on a different part of the plan, we've got some rooms down here, and let's go ahead and not do these as a rectangle. We'll take these off true to form as a room with this right angle right here, and there we go. And we can see that the room next to it and even the rooms next to that one are really the same shape, but just mirrored over the vertical axis horizontally. So we know we can duplicate a shape, right? So I'm gonna place it in the room. And so what I can do instead of having to draw the shape from scratch is just mirror it, right? And there I go, I can make a minor adjustment and boom, I've now got my takeoff done for that room as well. So I could just go down the line and continue to do that, right? I go ahead and I add this shape to that room, I mirror it and I'm good to go. Right? So you can see our mirroring tool can also be very useful, and you can also mirror over the horizontal axis as well. Lastly, let's jump to our floor plan and do some takeoff for an interior partition, this B01. And let's say that we want to take off this pantry room down here, right? So we'll just go ahead and do that the same way that we've been doing it. I'll grab my continuous line tool and just start left clicking around the perimeter of the room here. And there we go, we'll just keep it simple. And let's say that an addendum comes in, right? And you need to take this same pantry room and build another one right here where my mouse is next to this special education director room. Okay, well, we know that we can grab this shape and duplicate it and place it there. But maybe this isn't the desired degree of rotation that I would like for this room. No problem. Just like I can mirror and duplicate, I can also hit rotate and just move my mouse clockwise and rotate it. And then I can drag it into place. I didn't do it perfectly straight, but you get the idea. Our rotate tool is another way to just maybe let you keep the integrity of your takeoff shape and just rotate it. Sometimes the plan itself may even rotate 5 degrees. You can just go ahead and rotate your shape in accordance with that as well. Okay. Now, the only other type of takeoff we haven't seen is counting up our eaches. So if we, for example, want to take off all of these doors, I grab my door assembly, I hit my count tool, and I just start left clicking on the plan wherever those doors exist. And you see the count icon here. And that's it. We have all different types of icons and colors and icon size that you can choose from. I just kept it simple here today. But as you can see, this web takeoff is really easy to use. It's quick, it's efficient, and that's what I want you to take away from this today, and that we have all the tools you need for whatever your job has to offer. All right. And so now that we've aggregated takeoff quantity for all our assemblies, we looked at the items a little bit, but let's go take a deeper look at them and what their quantities are and how we can price those out to finish up our estimate. Okay, so again, takeoff and estimating all in one. We just click our estimate screen on the left-hand side and away we go. All right, so now at the top, we've got 3 tabs, right, for each of our individual scenarios, and they each have their own contract amount, as I mentioned earlier. All right, and let's just take a look at what we see in each scenario. Here's our wood framing, and we've got everything we need for an interior wood framed wall for a residential home or anywhere, right? We've got our 2x6 studs and track, we've got 4x8 drywall, all our finishing tape, mud and screws, some framing nails. If we go to the commercial side of things, we've got all our metal stud, our labor to frame it, some frame sealing labor for our acoustical, our door, some perforated tape, our more commercial materials, right? And even in painting, I had some pre-populated takeoff for the labor and material of latex primer, 2 coats of latex flat, and then an epoxy water-based 2 coats as well. And these are built out the same way. I can even check out how they're built right from the estimate screen. All we're saying is 2 square foot of this latex flat for every 1 square foot that I take off. And the reason this is 2 is because we specified we want 2 coats of this right here. So again, whatever your job calls for, you just build it into this formula here and you're good to go. We see that it's ordered by the gallon here, 200 square feet a gallon, another great example. Okay, so I just wanted us to see that you can have multiple different trades all in the same database, easily accessible. All right, we're gonna spend our time estimating here in the commercial interior section though. And so we see a bunch of different materials and laborers. I'm gonna click where it says cost type just to filter a bit and get everything grouped. But what we can also do is use a filter here to look at our materials only, right? I can even focus in on a specific material if I search by its description. So that'll help us kind of just identify what we see for an item, right? We have its description, we know that it's a material, we see the quantity. So this is probably our partition quantity doubled, right, for top and bottom track. We can add in a waste percentage if we want, which will just take 5% of this original quantity and add it to the total, which now gives us 91.48. And then remember, we specified that we order this by piece and that there's 10 lineal foot in a piece. So we just do some simple math and we get 9.15 pieces. And then let's say you can't order 0.15 pieces, right? You might be able to for your metal, but you definitely won't be able to for a box of nails. So you just hit this rounding tool and we'll round to the next whole number for you for any item, right? No problem. And for a material, it's simple. All you got to do from there is enter in a unit price, right? And this one had a pre-populated unit price based on what we entered when we created the item. So again, you don't need to change your database pricing unless you want to, right? Unless you get a new quote from your supplier or you want to make some adjustments. If I do, I just type into that field and I click out and it multiplies by the quantity and gives me my net cost for that material, which is a simple 50 by 10 is $500. If you figure your labor by just a flat net cost, I can type that in there and let it divide by my quantity and fill my unit price for me. So however you figure your materials, these fields talk to each other and we'll take care of the rest for you. Okay, so I'll just go ahead and delete my description filter. You'll see all of these materials have a unit price. If they didn't, you would see a red indicator here to let you know your unit price is 0. So you just want to make sure that everything has one. And now we're good to go, right? What we'll do then is look at our labor items. So we can filter to just see those if we'd like. And let's look at our install door labor, for example. We've got a couple different fields here. 5 is our quantity, our unit is eaches. And then now we have a EU per hour. What's your production rate? Okay. Let's say, and again, this can come from the database, right? So this is what our database value is. Let's say that we need to change it to 1. 5 eaches, 1 per hour. That's going to give us 5 total hours of work, right? Giving you a real easy example here. And then you enter in what your cost per hour is, right? Another value that you can enter in the database. So 100 times our 5 hours is $500 net cost. Okay, and these fields also talk to each other. So however you like to figure labor, you can do that. If we go ahead and type in a net cost of 1,000, it's going to divide by our cost per hour and give us our new total hours, which will also divide by your quantity and give us a new production rate. I can go ahead and type in a number of hours if I want to just do it that way, and that'll divide by my quantity and give me a production rate, and of course multiply by my cost per hour and give me a new net cost. So whatever you want to do, we can handle it. And just like our materials, each labor item here has its own net cost feeding into the total for our labor items at the bottom here. All right. And then I'll just bring it back to my material and labor item view. By the way, we do have items that you can designate as equipment, a subcontract labor, or other as well. We're just keeping it simple here today though. And so we see everything has a green indicator. We know everything has a price. When we're done doing that, you want to just hit this save button right here. We do have an auto save feature that'll save for you if you leave your screen idle, so don't worry. And so now we've got our material subtotal without any markups and our labor subtotal without any markups. And we can see the net cost here without any markups as well as our total hours. So speaking of markups, that's really all we have left over to go ahead and approach this final contract amount. So we have a really easy method to go ahead and input those as well. First, we'll do some overhead. You left click there and you can give this some sort of name if you don't like overhead. And we allow you to enter in either a percentage, a flat dollar amount, or a per hour rate. We'll just do a percentage for our overhead and we'll keep it at 10. So it's going to take 10% of this 15,825 grand right here. And that's exactly where this number in our overhead field came from, which is feeding into our contract price. And profit functions the same way. You can change it to a flat amount. And if I go ahead and type in $1,000, it's going to add 1,000 to our gross and make our contract amount the number you see here. Okay, I can even, let's say that I know I want my contract amount to be 20 grand. Okay, I can even type that in and let it back calculate what my profit should be. All right, and when I hit apply, that's what I'm going to see for my contract amount here. Okay, so we've got you covered with all the different tools you need to estimate waste, rounding, markups, all your labor fields, right? All that's left to do now is to go ahead and review our data and then use our reporting options to send it out to your team members to build that proposal, right? So I can expand the recap and look at each of my tax classes here. You can add markups to material, labor, and the rest, but I didn't just for the sake of time. But I can scroll down and see what my markups are, the name of them, what type it is, what the value is, and then in terms of dollars here. But what we can also do is hit our download reports button here, and we've got 4 options for you. 3 of the 4 can be generated as both PDF and Excel. What we're going to do is just pick 2 of the more common ones. We're going to do a summary report and a recap report. Okay, so our summary report is really just going to take all of your basic labor and material item information with the fields that you see here. These are our default columns that you'll be given when you first use the application, with a net cost and then a cost with markups for each item as well as the entire job. Right, so just a material and labor breakdown here, very simple. You can obviously adjust this spreadsheet because it's in Excel. Our recap report is basically going to take that expanded recap view we saw and just give it to you in a spreadsheet format here. Okay, so here's our material and labor costs. Here's our markups here at the bottom. If there was any material and labor markups, you would see those here. So we've got some other reports as well. We have a current screen report. What's cool about that is if you were to change up any of these columns here and get rid of them, turn some of these items off or filter to just labors, our current screen report will respect whatever your estimate screen looks like once you export it. So that's another great report too. But at this point, we are pretty much done, right? We loaded up our job, we did our takeoff in a bunch of different fashions. We jumped to the estimate screen where all our material and labors were waiting for us. We did a really easy way to price everything out, and now we're done, right? So once you get comfortable with this application, you'll be flying through. I hope you saw its flexibility and how easy it was to use, while at the same time giving you all the comprehensiveness you'd probably need. And we've really made it through the entire workflow at this point. So what I would like to do is open it up to any questions from the audience who's watching today.
Yes, great job, James. We do have a couple of questions. The first one is, can we create new assemblies from inside a job?
That's a great question, right? We talked a lot about the ability to create a database when you first buy the product, and that will help you with that. And we saw a little peek at it when we were adding assemblies to our scenario here, right? But what do I do if I'm, a lot of times you don't know that you need a new assembly until you're working on a job, right? A new wall type or a new ceiling type shows up on the blueprint that you've never seen before. So you need to put it into your database. At any time, you can flip this toggle at the top and actually create a new assembly from the job itself on the spot, right? All the same properties we saw. You can also hit this save to DB toggle if you want, and that will make this assembly available in your database the next time you pull it up. Or you can leave it off and it'll just exist in this job and nowhere else, right? Totally up to you. Another way that might come up is, let's say you've got this B01 partition for 12 feet here, and the first floor of the job's 12 feet, so that'll work for you. But then the second floor is 14 feet. No problem. You just go ahead and hit this copy button here. You hit your save to DB toggle so that it shows up in your database. I changed the description to 14 and my height to 14. I hit save, and it's as simple as that, right? Just already have that one in the database, but 14 feet, and then that would be available to bring in and do our takeoff for that assembly separately, okay? So hope that answers that question. Is there any others I can run through?
Yes, one more, and this one here says, where can we visualize our assemblies and items database better?
Okay, so I assume what that's asking about is we're able to, see our available assemblies here, and when we're inside of an assembly, we're able to, bring in the items from our existing items database. But where can we go to manage these, right? Are we stuck inside of a job to make adjustments to our items and assemblies, right? Because that just kind of complicates things, because I have to think about it in the terms of the job. But we actually do have a database location. If you hit this vector drop down, we've got a screen called Assembly Manager. And what you're seeing right now is a list of all the assemblies I have in my database here. I've got some for painting, eaves, flooring, wood framing, again, all in the same place. I can click on one like my 14 B01 partition here. I can open up the same assembly properties we saw in the job level here, except now they're in the database. So this will change it globally, right? It won't change anything in a job unless you refresh it inside of the job. And then we've got all our items on the right-hand side here. You can open up these items and change the formulas. You can delete them, copy them. So this is where you would be building your database when you initially purchase. And this is where you would come anytime you want to add to it outside of a job. So I believe that should answer that question as well, Bob.
Yes, and that's all we have for questions right now, but feel free to email any future questions that you didn't come up with right now, and we'll be able to return that answer to you immediately.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just want to thank everyone for watching our presentation today. If you would like to see an extended demo for your team that even uses some of your own PDFs and we can build some assemblies and items that you might have in mind, just reach out to Bob Ostrander with the email on the screen here and we'll get that set up for you. He's our vector sales rep, does a fantastic job. And then like Bob said, if you think of any other questions that we didn't get to today or that you thought of after the fact, you can email them on over to marketing@estimatingedge.com there, and we'll make sure to get back to you. And lastly, we've got the Vector website listed here at the bottom, vectortakeoff.com. Go ahead and check that out. And please reach out to us with any questions or interest. And just thanks again. We're really excited for what we're building, and we hope it can be of great use for you all. Have a great day.